Okay, here we go.
Test, 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 test.
Roll music?
Let's roll it.
Welcome to the Unknown Morning Show.
It's the show where we explore radio,
Podcasting,
TV,
gear,
gearheads,
and making money with a hot mic and other stuff too.
This is the Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
Unknown Morning Show. We're doing something different that we don't do a lot. High quality. Well, no, there's the other thing.
That too.
There's the other thing. We're on a road trip today, Mandee.
I know.
We are visiting the
It is kind of storied.
Kind of storied?
Yeah, because we're visiting our storied friend, Bob Mauldin, who is a storyteller.
That's right. We are over in his studios over... Is he official, Bob? When, by the way, say hi to the folks, Bob.
Hi, folks.
Is this Studio 31? Is that what it's called?
Well, the name of the business is 31 West Productions. It happens to be on 31 West, which is where it's always been. But it started out at my house, which was on 31 West back when I first started the company.
Sure.
But when I moved into an office, it still just so happens to be on 31 West, Front Street in Tyler. And this building is an over 100-year-old building that's been in Tyler for a very long time. It's the Energy Center, which started off as one of the H's, Hunt or Humble Oil Company. I can't remember which one in Tyler, and then became Exxon, and now it's called the Energy Center.
Okay.
And so I'm back here in the basement where they put all of us weird creative types.
And we've known you as a weird creative type as long as we've known you, which is awesome.
The whole time.
The whole time. So you two have known each other longer.
Gosh, since when? About 92, 93. When did you come to KNUE, Bob?
I came to KNUE late 94, probably early 95, actually, is when I came.
Wow.
And you started overnights or part-time?
I was part-time on the weekends.
Okay, because I know right away you made an impression on all of us as, well, first of all, you were commuting from Canton, which was a huge deal.
Yeah.
Because that's like, what, probably 70-mile round trip, something like that?
Well, I was coming, it was about a half hour for me coming in from where I was because I was east of Canton. So coming into Tyler to KNUE, you were working nights, 7 to midnight. And I grew up listening to Chuck McKinley doing the Crying, Loving, or Leaving late night request and dedication show. And I even called in and requested songs on his show when I was a kid and recorded myself on the radio, you know.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So when I got the gig working on the weekends, I was coming in on Saturday nights and Sunday nights doing overnights. So on Saturday nights, I was actually relieving Chuck when he would get off of the Friday night show. So Chuck was one of the first people I got to meet when I came to work there.
So what was your first impression, Bob? I mean, you'd been like idolizing, I'm sure, radio for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Because you've always wanted to be like in theater and on stage, right?
Well, you know, so my growing up in Canton, Texas, there weren't a whole lot of options.
Right.
And I wasn't always wanting to just take off and go to like LA or Nashville or New York or whatever. I wanted to stay around here but have those big dreams. And so, you know, stage, theater, movies, those kinds of things, country music, there weren't a lot of avenues for those kinds of things around here, but radio was one of the things that I could do around here. And so I kind of went after that first.
Right.
And I remember as a kid when I first started making my own money doing piddly odd jobs, I would go out to garage sales and I would buy turntables and record players and take them home and set up my own studio, and I would make these tapes for my friends because the way outdated library book that I checked out at Van Junior High School called A Day in the Life of a DJ.
Oh, yeah.
Showed that there were 2 turntables and a cassette deck and a reel-to-reel deck and all this stuff. And I thought, well, those are the tools that I need to learn how to be a DJ.
Right.
Now, granted, this is like 90, 91, 92. And so I'm thinking, okay, so that's what I need, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was buying old record players and stacks of 45s and all this stuff.
Oh, cool.
And making tapes for my friends with me DJing. They probably never listened to them, but I was playing DJ, you know.
Yeah.
And so when they finally built the radio station in Canton, Texas, I walked in with an actual air check tape, and I said,
cool.
This is what I can do.
And how old were you?
I was 15. So imagine my surprise as they're building this thing out and they're putting the studio in. They have the counters all set up. They have the carpeted walls in this place. And then finally they bring in the equipment. The board is tiny. And I'm thinking, what are they going to do with that?
Yeah.
And then they set up this computer. And then they set up this rack of CD players over here that this computer is going to select from like a big jukebox.
Ooh.
And I'm thinking, well, how's that going to work? Well, the computer is going to play the commercials, and it's going to select the songs based on numbers from those CD players, and nobody has to do anything. And I thought, oh, no, this isn't what I signed up for.
Right.
But then, so they were installing, at the time, it was a DOS-based automation system.
Yep.
In 94, pretty high-tech stuff.
Yeah.
But then, later that year when I started part-time on the weekends at KNUE, it was a little more like what I thought I was getting into. They were still playing CDs manually through the CD cart machines. Commercials were still played through tape cart decks. Phone calls were still recorded on the big Otari reel-to-reel.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So everything, and you were editing and splicing and doing all that, and so you were actually doing all of that still. It just wasn't with the turntable, you weren't playing records, you were playing CDs, but if you didn't push the button and you weren't there to do it, dead air.
Sure.
And you had to learn which songs you could play to make the restroom break work.
Oh, yeah.
And so yeah, that, at least when I got to KNUE, it was a little more like actually being a DJ.
And exciting.
Yes, it was very exciting. My first shift on the air at KNUE, devastating. I thought I would not. It was terrible. It was. I think they gave me a 6 p.m. to midnight or a 2 to 6 or something like that on a Saturday, and I was so excited, and I got in there and I kept blundering things.
Oh, you Hindenburged it, huh?
Oh yeah, it was awful. It was awful.
I know,
and
it happens.
I thought I've got to get better at this, and I did pretty quickly. But it was. I just thought, this is gonna be so fun, and it was terrible.
I think a lot of people have that thought.
All the time.
I remember over the years there have been people like contests to be a DJ for a day or win a chance to be a DJ, and then they get in there and they completely freeze.
Yep.
Or you have somebody that's a super chatterbox from a nonprofit, and you're going to interview them or have them record a PSA, and they're just the bubbliest person you've ever met. You put a microphone in front of them, and they give you one word answers.
Yeah,
it happened. It's funny.
Yeah. Or you're the interviewer and you get excited about a big interview and you have like the most famous celebrity you've ever got to talk to.
Yeah.
Not naming names, Tim McGraw. But you get them and you interview them and they're terrible. They're just like one word answers.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that I did not expect that.
Yeah. Some of them are better than others.
Yeah.
What's the best interview you've ever
You
done?
say to Tim, you're not like this on Entertainment Tonight. Wake up, dude.
Yeah.
Pretend I'm Faith, okay? Now.
We probably caught him between naps on the bus is what happened.
That's very possible.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I don't know. There's been so many of them and so many that I really enjoyed. But, I really, I think probably my favorite interview, and it's not a country artist. It was a wrestling manager, the guy that played Paul Bearer on WWE, Percy Pringle. His name was Will Moody, and I just enjoyed talking to him so much because we actually ended up becoming friends after that. And it was just like,
oh, cool.
He told road stories, and it was just like after we got off and like stories about people that it was one of my favorite interviews ever.
Yeah, because
and
you also love wrestling.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've kind of dipped my toes in a lot of different things, and a lot of it I was introduced to and was able to do because of radio too.
Yeah.
Just because we touch so many things through what we do.
That is completely true. Were you still at the ranch when I drove the dirt track race when I did that?
I think I did that too.
Did you do that with me?
I don't know if it was the
trying to
same
remember.
time, but they gave me this little putter old car that wouldn't hardly go. I was like thinking we were going to get to be out there drifting and doing all this stuff, and they gave me this tuned down junker that wouldn't go. Yeah,
Whatever I drove was going fast enough that it scared me and the lady that was riding with me.
Oh yeah,
but it was fun.
I don't know if it was the same year or not. I know that I did get to do that one year.
Yeah,
it was fun.
It was. I mean, the crazy things that you do in radio.
Yeah.
Oh sure.
There was one time when I was working with both of you guys, and Matt Morton was around too.
Yeah,
and we were doing. I can't remember if it was Longview Rodeo or Gladewater. It was one of the rodeos in town, and they wanted us to be a part of a mini dirt bike race. Do y'all remember this?
Yeah, that was at Longview.
Yeah, and we promoted it that I was going to do it. Mm-hmm. And I've never ridden a dirt bike.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And I get there, and I straddle this thing, and I start to rev it up, and it like comes out from underneath me just barely. And Matt looked at me and he goes, "Nope, you are not doing this." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Nope, you are right. I am not doing this. I'm going to die."
Did I end up doing that in your place? Because I know I did it.
You may have.
I may have ended up doing that in your place.
I just remember Matt being like, "This is a bad idea," and I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, it was.
And-
It sounded really good on the radio, but it didn't. It was,
And it's not good doing it in that you know, because they soften that dirt out there in the rodeo arena, and it's like deep.
Yes.
And it's not easy to
not
ride that
safe.
dirt bike out there.
No.
And then John Moore, when I did the Danger Boy thing, remember Danger Boy?
Of course.
yeah.
Of course.
When I was doing overnights, where I was at follow Chuck every night, I would stay on John's show for a couple hours in the morning and go out and do Danger Boy stunts. One time we went out to the Longview Airport. They had the Red Baron pizza biplanes in town. You know, that's the open cockpit planes, and we went up in those as a Danger Boy stunt. John was in one, I was in the other, and we went up and did loop-de-loops and flips and all kinds of things in those, and they would stall the engines and we would fall. I mean, it was all kinds of crazy stuff.
How'd you do?
It was fun. I loved it.
You loved it.
I loved it until a couple years later, and I heard that they like crashed into each other and fell out of the sky, and I'm like,
What?
Oh no!
Not so much love anymore.
No, it's like, well,
Yeah.
that could have been really bad.
I got to a certain point in my life when they asked me to go up like in the balloon and all of that, and I was like, here's the deal. I mean, if there's a chance that I could die for your radio station, no, I'm not doing it. And
Yeah.
I just don't.
Yeah, I used to would do anything.
Well,
for
you
that.
did, yeah.
yeah. And I was a kid basically, so I would, sure, whatever. They sent me out to the ferry.
Hence
Remember
Danger
the
Boy.
old the cell phones they sent us out with that had it was like the bag phone.
Oh, yes.
And the battery was a brick basically.
Yes.
And so they wanted me to go out and ride all the rides at the East Texas State Fair to like promote the fair. And so I'm on the Kamikaze, which is that big hammer shaped thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm hanging on for dear life. I'm holding the cell phone to my ear on the radio with John Moore with this hand.
Yeah.
And that bag is flopping all around the thing and crashing into my head with that battery. And I'm trying to keep it cool, but I'm getting assaulted at the same time.
Was that the worst fair thing you had to do by far?
I think so. I don't know. If there was worse, I don't have memory of it.
I remember we had to do it one year. Maybe you were there. The official sponsor for us was one of the mobile home places, and so what we had to do, it didn't matter where we were set up. We had to have the miniature remote unit, miniature Marty, and hightail it over to one of their mobile homes and extol the virtue of why you should come over here, and you get free hot dogs for the kids, and look at this mobile home. And my God, the first break that I did, I sounded like I had asthma, and this is before now where I almost sounds like I could have asthma. It was just incredible. It was a lot of chasing around that we had to do. Fairs were not. I mean, and then. For the fairs, we had to have a ton of prizes available, which would be like, we would save up all of our dog records, our CDs for the whole year. And we would have like the box, which you give out righteous prizes, and the ones that were just like crap. Hey, do you have a CD for me? Yeah, this is for you. Who's this? It's great. Trust me.
There's all kinds of fair stories out there that we probably shouldn't tell because so many people love the fair.
Yes.
And it's different whenever you're attending the fair versus working at the fair.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. Those might be something we put behind a paywall sometime in the future.
Hey, you know what? You were talking about Canton. Did you ever do any performing at First Canton Trades Days?
Yeah. Like I've done, of course, there was like a little stage out there. I've done a couple of shows out there on that, music stuff. And then I've done remotes out there. And then when I was at the radio station there, we had regular standing, remotes and things like that out there. I did a lot with that. And then, of course, it's one of my favorite things to go do. Of course, I don't like all the arts and crafts stuff. I like the junk. I like to go to the unreserved section and look at the old antiques and people's things they don't want anymore. That's my stuff. Old records.
My first real exposure to Rosanna and her family.
Uh-oh.
They had me. It was 105 degrees on a Saturday, and we went to First Monday, and it's the only time I've gone there a couple of other times, but it was like the first time I'd ever been there to where you go from one booth to the other and to the other. And I don't shop that way anyway. It's like, no, I want a pair of headphones. I'm going to buy those and go home. But
Yeah.
there's all these other booths to look at. Well, no, I've got this.
Yeah.
I come from a family of concise and careful shoppers, you may say.
I scan them. I walk fast and I scan them. If it's new stuff, I kind of keep on trucking, and it's just, and I know what section to go to get the stuff that I want. So I kind of walk right through all the stuff, like, you know, homemade wood crafts and things like that. Just boom, right past that and straight onto the. I know where I want to go and what I'm looking for.
Looking for that diamond in the rough and everything.
Oh yeah. I found, in fact, the first microphone my grandparents gave me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I used that thing and dropped it and broke it, and it was all tore up. But I found the exact microphone. It was a Radio Shack microphone they gave me when I was a kid,
neat.
which sort of gave me my love for listening to my own voice. But I found the exact microphone in brand new condition at First Monday, and it's on display back here behind us in this curio that my grandfather built. And he made a lot of the things in here, but this is my sentimental curio on the set back here behind us. But I have that microphone back here, and I found it at First Monday. So that's the kind of stuff I look for out there.
I love the radio up there, the old time radio.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's all symbolic in here. It's all symbolic of stuff like through my career and family and all that. All the stuff on the set. If you watch the Expedition Texas podcast, you would see it behind us. The video version of it is all kind of stuff that all kind of ties in through the radio career and family, and then up through different TV shows and things like that.
When you had, is there ever, a high point in your radio career, or is it always, and it seems like for me, it's always the last stop. Like right now, BB, I love it. I never thought I'd love to do news, but I like to do news, and I tell friends, you may not think there's fun in a newsroom. We have a great time.
When I heard that you were going to do news, I was thinking Chuck in news. That didn't, because you were always, to me, you were kind of like the super jock, you were like the DJ that you went with music, like you always found a way to like match the music that you were playing so well, and in my mind that went together, and so I couldn't put that together, but then I heard you do it. And you made that work, and you really took to it. And so, yeah, I really think that you really made the news work, and I love the way that you do it, and the way that, and you've really made it your thing.
But news is the same thing. I mean, I'm sitting there putting together the 5 o'clock news, so every day it's a blank slate, which I always find daunting with news, weather, sports. So I have my hands on like 30 pieces of sound a day, and then it's like with building the 5 o'clock, it's just, okay, what is the hot story of the day, nationally, regionally, locally, and, what is the amount of story coverage are we going to have? Or if it's a national story, how hot is it going to be right now versus 5 o'clock? And so that's been fun and daunting too, and like doing web work, because I have to do web work on the radio station. I take the same things as like looking at music, like building a music playlist.
Yeah.
You look at the local page and you go, hottest story, second hottest story, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's one of my duties each day. We do it the sort order, which is I have to go the local and the state news and go, 1 through 10 or whatever, and rank them and put it to bed for the night. So, things have some semblance of order. If you were to sit there and look at your radio career, so you programmed the ranch.
Yeah.
What other ports to call programming wise? Did you program Canton at all too? Buy me a cup of coffee, Mandee.
Yeah.
I've seen that on other podcasts. That's literally...
Yeah, it's like a virtual tip jar. It's really that simple. So you go to the show notes, click Buy Me a Coffee, and then you have an opportunity to support the show in any way you like. Imagine yourself going to coffee with Chuck and myself and saying, hey, I like what you do on the show. I'm going to buy you a cup of coffee. Only all you have to do is click a link. It's that simple.
Yes, I did. When I went back there, I did. And it was a general manager there, too. I would say running that station was kind of a high point for me when I went back there, just because it was hometown. It was the station I started at. And I had a chance at making a station profitable. That was It gave me a chance to run a station as a business, as more so than just a programmer. It gave me a lot of sense to be able to run my TV production company as a business. And I don't think I would have been able to do that if it hadn't have been for that experience with the radio station in Canton. We were able to come in and take a station that was running primarily on trade advertising and turn it profitable within 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Wow, Bob, that's awesome.
And
That's incredibly awesome.
Turn it around to where it was, and it took getting creative and running and we took the station over in September, and by December, we had created a Christmas promotion to where the sponsors would buy in and they would give a prize, and then we gave away this massive Christmas giveaway. Somebody won like a $10,000 prize package.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And the station made that much or more that month, and so and then we kept that momentum going into the following year. So that to me, and it's not the exciting part to people who listen, but when I left that station, there were a lot of advertisers who. I made a pretty good salary there at that station as a general manager, and there were a lot of advertisers who wouldn't stay because I wasn't there, so they brought me back. And
neat.
Yes, and it was one of those things to where my partner at the station was like, "Well, I think you got us up, you got us going. I think we can do this now." And I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." It was kind of a thing to get it started anyway, and so I was looking to go back to something bigger, but then it was like, okay, we got to figure out a way to get you back involved in this thing because it's falling off fast. And so,
Wow.
yeah, so it was a good feeling to be able to do that. And
But you had the vision.
yeah, I mean, it was to be able to make the business side of it work. Because I was always very adamant, and Mandee and I had this conversation the other day that I never wanted to have anything to do with sales at all, ever. I mean, and I had the guy's a radio legend around these parts. Dudley Waller set me down one time and say, "Bob, I really think you need to think about doing sales. You would be really great at it." I'm like, "No, sir, I don't think I would be really great at it. I'm just on air. That's all I can do." And he's like, "But Bob, you're just helping people. That's all you're doing when you do this." And I, "Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I appreciate the job, but I think I'm going to stick with what I'm doing." And it was like, and I never understood that until it became my responsibility to sell, and until I believed in what I was selling, and until it became necessary to do it, and then when you create a product that you works. And I followed advice from Tom Perryman, and I'm going to clean it up a little bit for your podcast here.
You don't have to.
He said, and I'm going to use a different bodily function. But he said, every time somebody sneezes, you're there with a microphone to cover it. That's not what he said, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how you do small town radio. That's what he told me, and we were. Mm-hmm. I mean, every time something happened, we were there with a microphone to cover it. I mean, we focused on local news. In fact, we put local news before national news, which was like my little gimmick on the station. We would do the local news first. We would lead with it, and just stuff like that. Little things like that we would do.
But who else was doing that?
It was
no one.
Yeah, we were just trying to do something different and have a little gimmick and all that.
What's so different is, technically speaking, what always happens technically is you hear the national news, and then ID national news, and then.
Yeah,
and then the local stuff. That's cool.
Yeah, so it was just experimenting and trying something different and trying to be a part of the community in every way we could, which is another thing that he told me, and it wasn't new. It was just stuff that I learned and was told to do. And if you want to be, I got a lot of coaching from Tom on small town radio for sure.
But it's what, that's the hard part too.
Yeah,
because you have to use some elbow grease to get it done.
Yeah.
You can't just punch a buttons, play a bunch of music and go home.
Yeah.
It's more than that.
Yeah, it's a lot of getting out there and being a part of things and showing up at things, and
a huge investment of time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, massive investment of time.
Yeah.
It didn't hurt that we were right across the street from the fire station and ambulance depot either,
That does help. Well, how did you transition, Bob, into Expedition Texas? Like, where did that idea come from? How did it get started? Because
So I came back to Tyler and had my second stint at the ranch, 104.1 KKUS. And after that ended, I went into PR, was working for Carter Blood Care for a while, doing basically sort of the face of their East Texas division, doing PR and helping with marketing and doing something they called regional relations. I did a fair amount of fundraising for them, which also fed into the sales thing a little bit, working with foundations and raising funds for their mobile platelet collection, which was a big thing. Did that for a couple of years, and while I was there, that was all very rewarding, working in nonprofit. But I missed broadcasting, and I wanted to do something to do with that, and I found that we were doing these events called donor banquets, where we would bring together some of our top blood donors and we would have a big get together for them.
Yeah.
And one year we were doing different, performances of some kind for them. And one year they let me produce a short film for the donors, and I got a camera and went out in the woods and created this silly movie of me as this explorer going out and trying to find a substitute for human blood. And the whole main idea of this explorer trying to find a substitute for human blood is to replace the fact that we need human blood donors.
Right.
Well, there is no substitute for human blood donors, so the whole thing ends up being a farce, and you can't replace
Right.
it. So the main idea of the story is there. So anyway, I made this whole film just to say there's no substitute for you, all these people in this room. So I made this little film, and that was fun, and did all this thing, and one of the things that I said in that thing was, we're going to find it, going out and finding this, and didn't know that was going to become a thing. So anyway, I'm going through those same woods with the kids. We would go out and hike down this creek bottom, and go out through the woods and go out and just explore. And one day, it was a Saturday, we had absolutely nothing to do. They were tired or they were bored. They weren't tired. Definitely not tired. They were after I got done with them. And so they were bored. And so I'm like, yeah, we'll just go. So we took off. And we hiked down the creek, and we went under this old railroad bridge that had a stamp of 1926 on it. Thought, cool, obviously 1926 railroad bridge here. We kept going, and we ended up at the spillway of Bellwood Lake. And tiny spillway, and it was a closed off area of the lake that was closed off to the public, had been for a long time. We found the end of Bellwood Lake Road, which is closed off to the public as well.
Okay.
It was mainly just tore up rock, and then we were digging around under tree branches because we saw rock structures underneath, and we're pulling back these tree branches, and we're seeing like old WPA stone fire pits and picnic tables that were kind of crumbling and falling down, but we're like pulling back and finding an old picnic area that had been shut off from the public for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And so we're all discovering all this cool stuff, and the kids are having a great time. We took some pictures out there, and I went back, told my wife, I'm like, you know what? It would be really cool to do a show about places like that.
Yeah.
Where it's just lost history. This stuff is just out there. Nobody knows it's there anymore. I mean, at one point, Bellwood Lake was the lake in Tyler where everybody went for recreation and fishing and boating and all that. And it's not anymore. It was the water source for Tyler. Before that, it was Victory Lake, which isn't even there anymore. That's why we have Lake Street in Tyler, by the way. Did you know that?
No.
Behind
I knew that there was
the
a lake
ETMC.
in that area, though, because
where
I
you
think
go
our
down,
house is
where
in
you
that
go
area.
down to Turtle Creek down there. That was a lake, Victory Lake. There's still a water station down there at the end of where it was. But that's that. I'm like, all this history that's out here, and it's lost. And so I had the idea to do a show called Expedition East Texas, where we go and we find these bits of lost history everywhere. And I went and talked to John Gaston at CBS 19, and he's like, yeah, we'll do that. Make us a pilot. So I made a pilot of a few, little things, and it was going to be Expedition East Texas. And I got ready for a fall premiere. I did like 4 or 5 episodes and made a Facebook page for it. And so we're promoting Expedition East Texas coming this fall on CBS 19. And then this network reaches out and they say and they were called Legacy TV at the time. and they said, we really like the idea for this show, and we want to carry it, but it's so regional. Can you make it less regional? Mm-hmm. I said, well, what about if we did all of Texas and made it Expedition Texas? Mm-hmm. Well, then that'll work. And I said,
Texas is pretty big.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, cool.
Bigger than Vermont. Yeah.
So that increases the budget substantially, but well, I think we can make that work. And we didn't have to change those first few episodes because
they're in Texas.
They're still Texas.
Yeah.
So we just made Texas bigger, took out East, made Texas bigger, and changed the logo a little bit. And that's how Expedition Texas was born. And that was 2012.
Bob, that's incredible. I remember when you were first kind of talking about it, and I just thought it was the coolest idea. But I love history, and I like discovering things too. So I'm just like, this is the coolest thing. This is going to be awesome. And I love that you've continued it for 13 years.
You know, when we first started it, and I think you and I talked about this in that conversation the other day, when we first started it, it was about, finding those lost bits of history and exploring and digging and, going into old buildings and seeing what's there and all that. But as it evolved over the years, it became about the stories that they told, because every place has its own story. Like this building. I mean, you walk into it and you think it's just an old, dingy office building. Well, it's not. It ties in directly with the East Texas oil boom. I mean, there's so many things around East Texas that tie in with that oil boom.
Yeah.
But, so much of the stuff, of these old buildings that are abandoned and just sitting there derelict, they have stories. And that's what we do, is we kind of go in and tell those stories.
Have you watched any of the episodes, Chuck?
I have. Not for a while, though.
I mean, it's been a while since I've plugged in, too. But do you have any, favorite memories or what surprised you the most about it?
Well, actually, and I'm going to cheat a little bit because, I was going to ask about something, and I don't know if I can or if I should. Halloween Harvey.
What a redirect.
Yeah, that is that's okay. That's okay, because that's a thing. You're actually sitting on a repurposed Halloween Harvey set, actually,
really?
Because this was where we shot it for the last few years. We've shot on 3 different sets, but they've all been made to look the same. We're covered in some of the areas here, like this back wall is the same color as this maroon color. This burgundy was the back wall of the set. So that is a horror host show that I started. Also, I actually did a little bit of that in 2010, but really full-blown in 2013. And then in 2015, 10 years ago, we got on Retro TV nationally.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's been on Retro TV and we actually just ended production of it for good. It always had a great fan appeal, always, and great viewership. We always sold lots of merch, just could not convince sponsors why they should pay for it. And so we had great following, but it's like, as a sponsorship tool, it was like trying to get sponsors, and it was like pulling teeth.
Any of us that grew up with things like that,
yeah.
It was like, when I was a kid, it was Bart's Clubhouse.
Yeah.
And so it was like Sunday, and they would do cartoons every afternoon, and you'd watch them just be, between Dark Shadows and Bart's Clubhouse. It was like incredible stuff. But I always thought that was, and I loved watching you because, I'm seeing you do Halloween Harvey, but then I'm seeing Bob too, and I'm going, yeah, cool.
Yeah, so we were hosting old B movies from the 50s and 60s, and it was classic horror films hosted by Harvey, and it was a different kind of thing, and it started out as a radio character. It was a radio bit.
I remember explaining to Rosanna. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me the story of how that got.
Yes.
Okay, so around Halloween every year, this character Harvey would call in. He was a mortician, and he was an aspiring comedian, and he would call in to Bob on the radio and tell me jokes, none of which were funny. They were like Laffy Taffy jokes.
Yeah.
And after every joke, he would do this horrendous laugh, and I would not obviously laugh, and then laugh, you fool, that was funny, and I wouldn't laugh, and so he'd get frustrated and hang up on me, and so that was the bit, and it was 45-second bit or whatever of him telling me a few of these Laffy Taffy jokes. But you're
playing both sides of the bit.
Yeah. So I'm the caller and I'm me, kind of like I did with the cleaning lady. I don't know if you remember.
I was going to say, are we going to talk about the cleaning lady?
The cleaning lady was another
That's hard
character.
to do, though. I mean, people.
It is hard to do.
Yeah. I loved doing those things. That was one of the reasons I got into radio, though. John Moore, again, was a big, influence on why I did those kinds of bits, because he did voices, character voices.
You have Halloween Harvey and Exhibition Texas.
That's a different show right there.
Oh, whoops!
Exhibition. That's a different
Yeah,
duck.
that's not Bob.
No, this is Expedition.
One misplaced word, and you're on a different channel entirely.
That's
That's
true.
the pay-per-view version.
That is true.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're with Expedition.
Boy, that's
Texas,
behind the paywall, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm curious to know what your pilot episode was, though. Where did you go first?
So first we did. We used to do like 3 places on
An
each
episode?
show. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But we didn't. It was like super quick, and you didn't get anything out
Any
of that.
depth.
So
Yeah.
So we did the Kilo Monument, which is near. It's in Larissa or near Larissa, which is just outside of Jacksonville.
Is this a pyramid?
Yes.
Okay, this is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm getting my nails done yesterday, and I'm talking to my manicurist about interviewing you and talking about our conversation. And she goes, "Has he ever done the Kilo Monument?"
Very first place we went.
She was like, "We used to go drink out there," and I'm like, "What is it?" And she starts trying to explain it to me. But what is it?
It's where a family was massacred by. That's a great place to go drink. I don't know why.
She said that. Okay, so as teenagers, and I think they were teenagers, underage, whatever.
Yeah.
They thought it was haunted.
Yeah.
So that's why they would go out there. It felt spooky.
Yes.
Let's go drink and get spooky.
Yeah. It was there was a treaty, obviously, with the Native Americans that was broken. And this family who was unsuspecting, they were on this land. They were not personally a part of the broken treaty. They were there because they were told they could be. And the Native Americans who were angry because of the broken treaty came in and pretty much massacred this whole family.
Oh, wow.
And there is a monument, and there's multiple graves out there, and that big pyramid thing is there. And I don't know if anybody is actually in the pyramid or under it, but there are graves all around it. And rumored to be like a cabin or something like that off in the woods or whatever. We went out there and explored a bunch of it, but there's
didn't find anything.
No. And then the also in the first episode, I think we went to the old jail atop the Van Zandt County Courthouse, which was hasn't been used in a very long time. Trying to think what else we did in that first episode. I can't remember. There was some other small tidbit. In the first season of the show, we went to a little place called Cuthand, which is where the Mauldins first settled when they came, and that's part of why this curio is behind me as well. It's my grandpa rebuilt, or he made the small structures of all the home place that they had settled out there where he grew up and everything. So this was all in that first episode as well.
Neat.
So he, we went out there and went out to where my family birthplace was, in an abandoned iron bridge that was out on the Sulphur River that had been rerouted around and things like that. Went walking in the woods and found that abandoned iron structure out there. And so the first season was pretty cool, but the first season also was like, let's find someone with a strong shoulder who knows how to point a camera and go.
Right.
And the second season was that way too. It didn't dawn on me till later on, maybe get someone that really knows how to operate the camera. And so the show improved dramatically the further we went. And now it's like I find myself looking back at those episodes, and I have gone back and repackaged some of those and taking out the bad parts and the parts that I go like, oh, how did I let that get on TV? And so I'm this season actually is about that. This spring season that just started, I'm going back and repackaging some of those episodes. So the Baker Hotel episode, which I have not shown in a very long time, is probably going to get to see new light because I'm going to go back and repackage it. It was a double episode. I'm going to repackage it as a single episode and keep the good stuff and put together the Baker Hotel episode as a single episode, which is about the big Baker in Mineral Wells.
I was about to say, talk about the Baker Hotel, because Chuck, I don't know if you're interested in any of this stuff. Like,
I don't know what the Baker Hotel is besides a hotel.
Okay, so Mineral Wells, it was like it drew people from all over the world, right? To come
because of this water.
Because of the
this
healing,
water.
the crazy water you're drinking.
Yeah.
The healing springs of that area. You know, you've heard of Hot Springs, Arkansas. People go
Sure.
to Hot Springs, whatever. Well, Mineral Wells was
One of
this
our
way, what,
friends.
in the
Yeah.
late 1800s?
Yeah. So, folks were more about before of all the pharmaceutical industry explosion, folks were more about natural healing and things like that. And the
Right.
minerals in the water, just by the way that the fissures and the different kinds of way that the minerals seeped into the spring water and mineral wells, people believed that there were curative powers to the water back then, and people actually would feel better after having drank the water from mineral wells. So an entire industry was built around that. There were spas and different, they had colonic type of things there. They had these spas and, medicinal. They would cook the water down and sell like powdered minerals out of the water. All sorts of things. A whole industry based on this crazy water from mineral wells back in the day, and so people would travel there from all around. So these massive hotels sprang up. The biggest of which was the Baker Hotel, and it's this huge hotel. If you're driving out that way, yeah, it's still there, and it's been abandoned for a really long time. And in 2013, we did an episode on it, and at the time they were talking about doing the unthinkable, which was to bring it back. Massive hotel.
I remember that.
If you're driving in, you see it on the horizon for a very long time before you get to mineral wells.
Okay.
And so they were talking about this and talking about all the tax credits and the grants and the millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars it would take to do this. Well, it wasn't so much of a pipe dream after all. The hotel is scheduled to reopen in 2027.
Is it really?
Wow.
Yes.
I am so excited. I remember when I was at Mix and I was having to write these articles, right, for their website, I wrote about it, about the reinvestment that was happening, and I found your episode. I think I embedded your episode
I think you did.
into
Yeah.
the story because
Yeah.
I was like, oh, cool, Bob's been there. And I remember it just being so excited about it.
Yeah.
2027.
Yes. It's
wow.
They have made huge progress on it, and it is.
I now want to drive to Mineral Wells.
Yeah, and another hotel they've already worked on is the Crazy Water Hotel, which had an actual bar in the hotel that did not serve alcohol.
Just
they
water?
served water.
Wow.
And they've brought it back, but they had water on tap that went straight into the well back then. And you could come order a number 2, number 3, and the numbers are based on which well it tapped into. And you could come to that
would
bar.
probably work again. There are a lot of people that are like drifting away from alcohol. It wouldn't surprise me if they could become profitable off of the crazy water again.
They have the bottled crazy water there. They have a partnership with the Crazy Water brand now, which is a brand that's in stores. But you can actually go to the Crazy Water Hotel is back open. The Crazy Pavilion is open again. You can go to the Crazy Water bar. You can order water, but it's bottled. And you can, but they've opened it as a coffee bar, and you can get, good
coffee
there.
made from the crazy water?
Yeah.
I now need to go there.
Yeah, it's
Remote
Trip to
time.
Mineral Wells is coming up.
And you can stay in the hotel, which is fabulous.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you stayed there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I went and spoke at their chamber banquet.
Oh,
and,
awesome.
And they put me up at the hotel. It was very nice.
Very, very cool. So, where have you gone that you never expected?
One of my favorites, having a love for movies, and I just saw it in a movie again recently, was Alamo Village in Brackettville. And Tom Perryman used to talk about this place a lot because Happy Shahan, who was from Troop, Texas, built this place. And it's in Brackettville, Texas. And the deal was, when John Wayne was filming The Alamo, they were looking for a place to build a set, to build their own Alamo, somewhere that resembled San Antonio in the actual period that the Alamo was, the battle happened. And so they settled on Brackettville, and Happy Shahan on his ranch agreed that if they would build the facades, he would build the rest, and they would have actual 3-dimensional structures out there. And so John Wayne's production company built the facades. Happy Shahan came in and with his own crews built the rest. And so they actually built the whole Alamo compound out there. And so they filmed the movie The Alamo on this ranch out there. And then as soon as production left, this dude opens it up as a tourist attraction.
What? Smart.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So help me out here because I'm the baby of the bunch. What year was that?
John
Roughly?
Wayne's movie was, I don't remember exactly when it was in the 60s.
Okay.
But then he also built an Old West town, and the whole Alamo Village compound out there has been featured in dozens of movies.
Really?
Yeah, and music videos, and I was watching Lonesome Dove a while back, and they were talking about going to San Antonio, and I'm like, oh yeah, I bet they go to and sure enough,
really,
they're at Alamo Village.
So he's repurposed that set time and time and time.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And so, but in the early 2000s, Happy Shahan passed away.
Okay.
His wife kept it open for a little while. Tourism slowed down. People didn't take road trips like they did anymore.
That's true.
And you got to travel a long way to get down there because
Where
it's
is Brackettville?
South Texas, and you got to go a long way to get down there.
Yeah.
And it just people don't travel by car to go do that kind of stuff anymore.
Yeah.
And so it had died off and closed. And so Tully Shahan was his son, as a lawyer in Brackettville. We went down and met with him. He took us out to his daddy's ranch, which was fully abandoned at that point, and we toured the whole thing. We toured
cool.
the Alamo, the Old West town. Of course, all these sets were out there. You go up to like the old. They had a full like a saloon set, which was also featured in Lonesome Dove. The town, the church. There's like an old mission-looking church out there. All these set pieces were used in multiple westerns down through the years. You could go belly up to the bar, and all this kind of stuff, walk through the swinging doors. But some of the facades were actually openings for like storage. So they would open up the one of the buildings and that would be storage where they had all the carriages that they used, and they were all stored in there. All the carriages they would use for like the different, background stuff that was going on when they would come into town. So that was probably one of my favorites, just because it was an active, it was a movie set.
Yeah.
But it was shut down. And it was, and I was thinking, man, and now Tully was trying to sell it to us while we were there too. He was like, $5 million and it's all yours. And I'm like, well, if I had $5 million and a few projects in the works,
I'm curious to know if it's sold, though, because Westerns have become popular again.
Well, I don't know if it ever sold.
And I just saw in the news this last week that it was McConaughey and two other actors. I'm trying to remember who. Woody Harrelson and maybe Dennis Quaid, that were meeting with the Texas legislature trying to get Texas to be more film friendly.
Yeah, they did a great spot too, kind of to commercial to kind of get that geared up. But yeah, I would love to see something like that happen. I don't know whatever happened with the land. It's probably more valuable unless something like that goes through. It's probably more valuable as ranch land than anything else.
So.
But funny coincidence though. Years later, I met and married my wife. She lived on a piece of land, or in a little neighborhood called Shahan Ranch.
Really?
In White House, which was a piece of land formerly owned by Happy Shahan, and we lived on a street called Tully Trail.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was kind of a coincidence, but yeah, Tully was the guy that showed us around.
Yeah.
Shahan, his name, Happy Shahan down there in Brackettville. So yeah, but that's kind of a tie to East Texas. But that movie set and that legendary John Wayne movie, which was one of the few shot in the big wide 70 millimeter film back in the day, which is a really cool way to watch a movie back then. And then the original 70 millimeter print, if you're watching, there's a certain scene where you can see the school bus way off in the background dropping off. It's a Western, mind you. It's the Alamo.
There should not be.
There shouldn't be a school bus, and it's dropping Tully off after school one day.
That's wild. That's really funny. I love things like that in film where there's like a mistake that's caught. Mm-hmm. You see like a Diet Coke can in the back of Game of Thrones set or something. Like, pretty sure that's not supposed to be there. That's wild. So how do you decide where to go now?
There's so many, and now that we've as soon as we started on the air, we started getting suggestions. People
I would
telling
imagine.
And there's still just so many that we've been told about over the years and we hear about them, we see them when we go, and we'll never find them. We'll never see them all. I mean, there's so many places we want to go that we still haven't been able to go. And we had, in fact, last season in the fall, we had we had 3 or 4 places that we just we were supposed to go on this. We went on this big week-long trip, and we didn't get to go to some of them because somebody's schedule fell through or whatever, and now they're pushed off to this year because, well, we're gonna make sure we go to those. I mean, like, schools, and one of the big things that I really looked for, and this is definitely one that we probably won't get to do just because there aren't any, because I researched abandoned amusement parks.
Oh, they tear them down?
They tear them down. They take all the stuff out, I guess, for insurance reasons or whatever.
Probably.
But for the longest time, Six Flags New Orleans was there.
Was it? There was a Six Flags New Orleans?
Oh, yeah. And after the Hurricane Katrina, it was there. It was flooded, and it stayed there for a very long time.
Now I want to go find photos of this.
Yeah, but it wasn't Texas, so it didn't fit our story. And nobody would have let us in there. Now, lots of people got in there because they weren't. That we don't go in without permission because it's on TV and everybody would know.
You're not looking to go to jail.
Yeah, we don't want to go to jail. But yeah, it's I would love it. We looked. There were so many places and there were places I remember as a kid that would be cool to go to. There was a place called International Wildlife Park in Dallas, which is nothing but a big parking lot now. And Sesame Place that I remember as a kid, which was a Sesame Street themed theme park. Nothing left of that now. There's some places that would have been cool to go, but there's nothing left of them. But some neat places like that would be neat to go. Hospitals. We finally got to go to a hospital last season. And it was in Mineral Wells, the Nazarene Hospital in Mineral Wells. We went to that. There was some cool stuff to see there. But yeah, there's always something out there. Lots of schools and hotels and that kind of thing, and ghost towns. Ghost towns are plenty. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking the other day, Chuck. Bob and I had coffee, and I was asking him about some of these, and I was driving through Joinerville, headed towards Carthage, and I see this big structure up on a hill, and I'm like, what the heck is that? In Joinerville, in my head, I went to Kilgore College. I grew up in White Oaks. I'm like, well, Dad Joyner had the Daisy Discovery well, so Daisy Bradford, so that probably is related, and there had to be a lot of money here if that's the case. What the heck is this? And then I get to see Bob a week later, and I'm like, so do you know the story behind this thing?
School.
And it's a school.
Yeah. It was the school, and so we wanted to go there. We don't get to go to every place we want to go.
Right.
That became private property. Someone bought the building, and I don't know what they're doing with it. If it's a house, it's a huge one. But yeah, it's somebody's private property now, and we did not get to go there. We wanted to as a part of a 3-part series of episodes we did last year on the East Texas oil field, and we were telling the story. We were in that museum and the little soda shop up front, and talking all about what happened there and how it tied into the East Texas oil field story, and that would have been great because it was a massive school and represented how many people around there were in town at that time, and how much East Texas grew during the boom. But it just didn't work out, and sometimes it just doesn't.
Was it a private school?
No,
it was a public school.
Public school. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Now I want to know. Now I want to go dig and Google and find. And I understand why this show is popular.
Yeah, it does. And one of the things that it does is it encourages people, which is kind of why a lot of folks, it's easy for us to find sponsorship with cities and tourism boards and things like that, is because it encourages people to visit these towns and it encourages tourism and the history tourism, people to go and visit these towns. And you may not can always visit the places we go. Our cameras tend to go into places that people can't go otherwise, but it encourages people to go visit the cities and try to learn more about them.
Yeah, I'm sort of a nerd that way. We went to Savannah a year ago for my birthday, and
I bet that was amazing.
It is. You should visit.
Yeah.
Also a really haunted city.
Yeah.
Lots of crazy history there. We went on a walking booze and history tour. And it was funny because we're drinking as we're walking through Savannah, because like New Orleans, you can walk around with an open container. And our history guide is telling us that some of these stories might be just a little colored by the fact that she's drinking with us. She's like, I don't know that it's going to be 100% accurate, but it's going to be fun.
I was going to ask you if you meant booze like drink booze or booze like boo.
I think it was meant to be a little of both.
Okay.
Yeah. We went to some They still have some speakeasies in Savannah. Those have kind of become popular again. So it's like I'm trying to remember what the name of it was, but it was like an empanada place on the front, and then there's a door in the back, and you go into this like it's kind of similar to the vibe in here, kind of a dark and a little bit more spooky, probably more like Halloween Harvey, but like a cocktail lounge.
Cool.
And it was really cool.
Awesome.
It's a neat city. I know it's not Expedition, like Southeast, but if you ever just want to go because you're interested in history and tourism, it's a great city to visit.
Very cool. Very cool.
Do you ever get side projects from some of these like cities or tourism boards that want you to do specific things that they're willing to like kind of pay and sponsor for?
Sometimes that's kind of what our Spotlight City thing is. It's included in the show, and so cities can be a part of the show by being a Spotlight City, and we come kind of tell the story and the history of the city. But yeah, we've done some other things with them too, and fortunately, Expedition Texas kind of keeps us busy enough that we don't have to do a whole lot of that. But I'm always looking for something to kind of get involved in. Get something that's a little different because even shooting Expedition Texas, it doesn't take long. We can head out and in a couple of weeks have a season of the show shot.
I believe that.
And be done.
Yeah.
And, now it takes a lot longer on the back end, but going out and actually exploring the places, that's not that long. You can spend a day in each place and be done.
Wow.
It's a quick deal.
How many episodes are in a season, Bob?
10 to 13 each season.
Okay.
And then and we do 2 a year.
Okay.
So a spring and a fall.
Okay.
Fall is usually the emphasis. Best stuff goes into the fall because that's when the TV stations are pushing their best content, and so we try to make sure we give our best content then too.
Makes sense.
Yeah, spring is usually more kind of the fun, kind of offbeat, different stuff. And like what we're doing this spring is kind of going back and grabbing some of the episodes that maybe, when we started off, we were just on a Tyler station and a Dallas station, and we're not on either one of those same stations anymore. And so our viewership is very different than it was back then. We were on an independent station in DFW. They still have full coverage, but it was a different station. Now we're on a network affiliate in DFW, and we're on a network affiliate here. We're on KLTV here, and so we're going to go back and grab some episodes that aired on different stations back then, and now that we're all over the state, we can introduce those stories to audiences that haven't seen them before. So we're going to show those stories and let them be seen by a wider audience.
So when can we watch? When are you on?
Well, in East Texas on KLTV, we're on Saturday nights at 11.
Okay.
So right after the news, you get Texas Country Reporter. Depending on if they're showing reruns or not, you got Bob Phillips or Justin, the new guy, and then us, and then in Dallas, depending on where you're watching or listening to this from, in Dallas Fort Worth, we're on Sundays at 11:30, I believe. And that is on the CW33 KDAF up there.
Yeah.
And then just different times all over the state. We're on a CW affiliate in Austin, CW affiliate in Houston. The reason we're on CW affiliates, I think, is those stations have looser their local inserts. They have more time that they can insert local stuff.
Right.
And so, but we're on in the Waco Temple Bryan College Station market as well. In Lufkin, Nacogdoches, as you know, KLTV is simulcast on.
Yes. Is it KTRE?
Yes, KTRE down there, Channel 9. And then we've got Amarillo, Midland, Odessa. Trying to think.
Are you down in Brackettville?
Abilene, San Angelo. Brackettville, I'm trying to think who would be.
I don't even know what that market is down there.
I think that would be San Antonio. So yes,
yeah.
We would. Heartland gets us San Antonio. We're nationwide on Heartland TV, which used to be TNN.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
And we air twice a week on that network. So
nice.
We got a pretty good little coverage area, and we're very excited about all the stations that carry us, and it's just going strong, and we're very, very, very fortunate that we get to do what we do and get paid to have fun and tell these stories.
Yeah. Can we also watch online?
Oh, yes. We have a YouTube channel, which is where we put all the episodes that have aired already. So when one airs on TV, the following Monday it goes on YouTube. And we also put all the Spotlight Cities on YouTube as well.
Awesome.
And I like to put like bonus content on there. So like,
Nice.
you know, we get to use very little of the interviews that we do with, and so I like to put like the full interviews on there.
Nice.
And then we chop up our tours so much, you know, for commercial breaks and things like that. So I'll put like the full tour on there. Like if we go through a place, sometimes I'll just put the whole thing on there.
Nice.
And, you know, because it can get boring on TV, but if somebody really wanted to see everything we saw, we can put that on there. I mean, we don't do it all the time, but there's some extra stuff to see on there. Plus our podcast is on there as well.
Okay.
What would you recommend if somebody's new and they're like, hey, I want to check out Expedition Texas for the first time? What episode would you tell them to start with?
I would say, I don't know. I would probably say, I mean, if you're looking for big stuff, my favorite as far as I love stuff that we get to do that brushes with big national stories. We did an episode in the fall of 23 called 48 Hours with Oswald. And what we did is we retraced the steps of Lee Harvey Oswald in the 48 hours from shot to shot, basically.
Oh, wow.
From the shot that he fired on Kennedy to where he was shot.
Right.
And we went to all those places. And so it was a different take on the Kennedy assassination story. And it was a story that we sat on for a long time so that it would air on the 60th anniversary of the assassination.
Also really relevant this week.
Yeah.
Because the files were just released.
Yes, yeah. So that's a good one to watch,
Yeah.
and it's a little different for us. And one thing that happened in that story is while we were in the 6th floor museum doing our part there, we ran into the couple it's the couple you always see in all the films, in every documentary that's ever aired. You see them laying on the grassy knoll covering their kids. They brought some friends to the museum, and we got to interview them.
They happened to be there on the same day?
They happened to be there the same
Wow.
day, and we got to talk to them. And he describes the sound, and when he's talking about the sound, he hits his fist in his palm of his hand 3 times.
Ooh.
And as he's describing the sound, and I've never done an interview where I got chills like that one.
I bet.
I mean, I've done
A lot of
probably
interviews.
1,000 interviews, and I've never gotten chills hearing someone who was there that day, who I've seen laying on the ground in every film I've ever seen,
Right.
describe to me and imitate the sound that he heard that day that way. And it was chilling. So
Wow.
that episode's on there. We went and had a long sit-down interview with Charles Pace, who was a member of the Branch Davidians. And we toured the property of the Branch Davidian compound
In Waco?
In Waco. And interesting story on that. We went all through that place. You know, they had a buried school bus there.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
There was a buried school bus there.
Yeah.
That was and we were able to see down into that. There's a lot of that in that episode that and some of it I kind of wish I hadn't taken pictures of, because I found out later after the fact that there were people that actually died in that. And you know, but that episode was, you know, interesting too, just because of everything that happened out there. But you know, there were so many bullets flying from the back of the property, and there was a part where at the end of it, we're walking with the lady. It was Charles's wife, and we're walking back, and he was a Branch Davidian, but he had left prior to the siege. And we're walking back, doing the final scene. We're like walking back toward where the big part of the compound was. And as I'm walking with her, I'm seeing shell casings in the road. It was a dirt path. They're very old, and they're just kind of sticking out, you know, where erosion had, you know, come, and they're just kind of sticking out of the dirt. And we're walking along, but we're filming the walking away from the camera as she's talking part of it. And I'm making a note of where these are because I'm on camera right now. And then, so we finish our piece. We call cut. We turn around and start walking back, and I let her get ahead of me. And as we're going, I'm plucking these things out of the ground as we're going back. And we get back, and I'm looking, and I'm asking my camera guy, do you think these are, and they were 223s that they were using, that were, and they're all out there.
Wow, that's wild that they're still there.
Yeah, and you know, the age of them and everything
Yeah.
like that. There's so many of them out there all over the place because they were just being fired everywhere.
I was so young when that happened that I just remember the headlines and how scary
Yeah.
it was. Like, I think I was probably 9 years old.
Yeah.
Was it 93?
Yeah. And it was just like so but there were so many of them that were just being fired everywhere,
Right.
and they were just, you know, They were just left on the ground, and so they're they wash up every now and then because they're just in the dirt out there. But yeah, those are kind of atypical episodes. Our normal episodes are
but powerful.
Our normal episodes we're going into, and that Nazarene Hospital is a good episode.
Yeah.
The where we went into the one in Mineral Wells. So anything last season was really good. We had a really good season last season in fall. So anything from episode 18 something. If it says episode 18 something, then definitely watch one of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
There he is with us on the Unknown Morning Show. Bob Mauldin, our guest with Mandee and I. Bob, thanks so much for being with us today.
Well, thank y'all. I've enjoyed visiting.
This has been another episode of the Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
This is our show to explore radio,
Podcasting.
gear,
And the gearheads that use the gear.
and making money with a hot mic.
And other stuff in between.
We'd love for you to follow us on social media as well. Follow us on Facebook at The Unknown Morning Show and Instagram at The Unknown Morning Show. See us on YouTube at The Unknown Morning Show.
Thank you for listening to the Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
I'm Chuck McKinley. And remember, be kind and rewind.